Okay, welcome back to RestoreLiberty.us, our podcast. And we're here with Bernie Moreno, candidate for U.S. Senate and all-around common sense guy. Let's talk about what's going on in issue two. And issue two, for me, is what, when you mentioned the slogan, Vote November, I thought that was a great catch-all for what's going on with the major issues on the ballot. And so on issue two, the reason to vote no for that isn't necessarily that you don't want to legalize marijuana, which if you ask anybody, issue two is legalizing marijuana. That's all they know it is. But when you look at the text, which by the way is infinitely difficult to find on the web, the only thing that exists on the web is a picture of the document. So I had to run it through a translator so I could read it and search. So on paper, it's called Commercialize, Regulate, Legalize, and Tax the Adult Use of Cannabis. Well, at least there they use the word adult. They don't make it for everybody. But the actual text of the resolution is 51 pages long. And if you look at that, the word equity appears 42 times. The word license, as in you would think that's the main topic, only appears 20. This whole thing is a facade to empower the Ohio Department of Development to create a whole new agency called Social Equity and Jobs Program, financed by the taxes from cannabis. I just find that entirely deceptive. It's like calling it the Affordable Care Act, and when all it's going to do is triple the cost of insurance. So, I mean, that to me is another case where none of this went through the normal legislative process. And in this case, it's 51 pages written by an out-of-state lobbyist. And there's just tons of information in there that has nothing at all to do with legalizing marijuana. Do you?
Well, yeah, George.
Go ahead. I was going to say, what is your thoughts on that?
Well, it's vote no in November, so it's no on one, no on two. This, not to use a pun, smells a lot like legalized casino gambling in Ohio. Well, what you're doing is instead of honoring the fact that our form of government is a representative democracy, what we're doing is we're sidestepping that, and an industry that's on the verge of making enormous profits is prepaying some of those costs by pushing this issue. The reality is, if this is something that should happen with the people who we elect to represent us in Columbus. Look what happened with casino gambling. All of a sudden, in our Constitution, we have parcel numbers that tell you where legal casinos are. My personal point of view is, George, if somebody's ever done illegal drugs in my life, ever, I barely even drink. I'm not an advocate that we need more ways for people to escape reality. And the reality is marijuana leads to schizophrenia. It's a gateway drug. We know what's happened in Colorado. It's a disaster. As you know, my oldest daughter lives in New York City. When I go there, my wife and I like to take the baby out for a walk, stroller, and it's hard to do that, almost impossible to do that now because the smell of marijuana is everywhere. We're big dog people. I like to take our dogs for a walk. My wife and I do that with my son's dog, who lives a mile away. And in places where marijuana is legal, you have marijuana butts all over the floor, and these dogs are eating these things and getting extremely sick. We live in a civil society. I can't stress enough how detrimental this is when you have that kind of smell everywhere. By the way, we're seeing it in Columbus, where marijuana is basically de facto legal because the police aren't. The police arrest these people and then the prosecutors don't charge them. We don't need more of that. We should be talking about how do we restore the moral center of our country and get us back on track and not unleashing another gateway drug that's going to harm our kids.
Well, and that's just it. I think the side effects on this one are nearly as destructive as the side effects on issue one. I mean, it's just destroying the mental and moral character. There's a lot of people that are making, claims about, well, you need it for pain or cancer treatment. And I think that's already legal.
Yes.
And then on top of that, to know that this entire document is structured to create a whole new social equity network that has nothing to do with it, just makes it stink even more. Like you said, I just think that the whole idea is, if you look in the details, and I know I'm in the minutia here, but there is actual text in this resolution that says if you were prior arrested for selling marijuana, we will give you Ohio tax dollars to start that business now. You get first in line and we'll give you the money to do it again. It just
insane.
seems rewarding
Insane.
the worst possible behavior.
One, as you know, a lot of more serious offenses are dropped down to just possession cases. So the person may be charged with simple possession, but the original offense was much higher than that. Let me just say, here's the state of the left right now, America, George. Here's where the Democrat Party is. Whatever child they can't kill in a wound, they want to try to mutilate as adolescents. They can't mutilate them as adolescents. They want to indoctrinate them into victimhood and socialism. If they can't do that, then they want to have them completely controlled by drugs and pornography. That's the state of the Democratic Party today. That's why we're winning over, George, so many disaffected Democrats that are joining the Republican Party, and why I'm proud to be part of a new Republican Party that puts middle-class workers first, American workers first, the interests of this country first. And it's no longer the party of the elite and the well-connected. That's the Democrats. We're the party of faith. We're the party of freedom. And we're the party of giving this country to our kids in a better place than the way we got it. That's ultimately the message that's going to be in 2024. And the contrast between me and Sherrod Brown, who is the worst of the Democratic Party.
Right. And I think you've really hit on it. We've got, a current majority in Congress that is just literally advocating moral destruction. And, the average American family over the last 2 years is paying $750 a month more for the exact same stuff they had, back when Trump left. Gasoline's through the roof. This push for electric cars. I mean, you have to be aware, and as an engineer, there is nothing more efficient than gasoline, nothing on the planet. So if you're burning some fuel and then charging, you're already starting off negative. So don't get me started. But the whole idea for
I'm with you on that one, George. We can go down the electric car rabbit hole. But as you know, at the end of the day, what's really at stake there isn't what kind of car we should have, because obviously we know the market should decide. Like, remember, they want to confiscate as much of our money as possible in the form of taxes. But now they want to take the money they didn't confiscate and tell us how to use it. And the reality is they know all the perils of electric cars. Let's not be blind about that. They know our grid can't handle it. They know there's not enough lithium. They know this is handing our industry to China. What this is ultimately about is ending private ownership of cars, because cars represent liberty, cars represent freedom, and that's what they hate.
Wow, I hadn't thought of that perspective, but you're right. And that's why Europe's so in favor of it. Their towns are so close together, you don't really need a car. Interesting. Well, to sort of sum things up on the state level, vote no in November, just vote no. Our signs are coming in this week. So if you've got a yard that wants to proudly proclaim your spot, send us a note, info@restoreliberty.us. We'll get you a sign to put in your yard, and to basically force people to look at what's actually going on in there. I mean, that's the main thing. If you go to any, I was going to say uneducated, but uninformed crowd, and you mention what's issue 1, oh, that's pro-abortion. What's issue 2? Well, it's legalizing marijuana. Well, none of that's true. It's so much more than what that says. So when in doubt, just vote no in November. We'll be back in a minute to finish up with Senate candidate Bernie Moreno.